Hi and welcome to Evil Knits. My name is Evie or Evie, and today I want to show you my yarn stash. I'm very excited for this video. I personally love yarn stash videos. I'm not sure if the word guilty pleasure is applicable here because I'm not gonna lie, I do enjoy a big yarn quantity and seeing the numbers go down, but that's another topic maybe. Today I want to show you what yarn I have, how I store my yarn, and if I have any plans for any quantities. I also want to tell you about those plans. I want to do a little quick fire round of information about my yarn stash before we get into the nitty-gritty. I think I'm gonna put bullet points up on the screen so you have the information visible. You can read through them. I don't have to get into great detail. I'm afraid of this video being super long. I kind of want it to be easily digestible still, while still talking about the yarn I have and appreciating it, and talking about plants and just spending time with yarn, which I think is a very nice thing to do. Yeah, but there's a few things I would like to tell you before we actually have a look at the yarn. So, I have been an avid knitter for 4.5 years. I learned how to knit twice before that, and then the third time I started knitting, it really stuck, and since then I've been a knitter, you know? And I do enjoy having a yarn stash, so my goal is not to get down to 0. I have a yarn stash, I like to be creative with it, but I think it's fun to keep track of it. So in February 2024, more than 2 years ago, I started tracking my yarn stash. So I counted all of the yarn I had, and then I took a little booklet and I wrote down the number, and then every time I finished a project I would subtract that number, and at the start of every month I would calculate what the current number of yarn in stash is, and that way just keep track of the number. Now, you may be familiar with other people's stash busting series, and everyone has a different way of keeping track of their yarn quantity. Some people use grams, some people use meterage, some people use 50-gram balls as a unit. I personally go with unit of yarn. And this unit of yarn does not have to be 50 grams. When I buy a hank of 100 grams of yarn, that is 1 added to my stash, 1 unit of yarn. When I buy 5 balls of 50-gram balls of yarn, that is 5 added to my stash. If I buy a mini of 20 grams, that is also 1 added to my stash. So anything that is physically 1 unit of yarn is represented as 1 in my stash. When I have partially used a skein, and it's still physically there and I can touch it, it's still 1. So I don't do halves, I don't do quarters or anything. I only do full numbers. At a certain point, when something is a really tiny scrap, I do consider it used up and write destashed on the tag, and then it's just a little tiny scrap, but you'll get a visual of that later. I have a little cheat sheet. I keep my yarn stash in 2 spots in my apartment, with the exception of works in progress. The first spot that we will also look at in just a second is this table right here. It's a table, a coffee table where you can put things inside. It's an IKEA product, as many things in my home. And I would say 2/3 of my yarn is in here. And the yarn that's in here are mostly sweater quantities or t-shirt quantities, unstarted project quantities. The second spot where I have the other third of my yarn stash, I would guess, is for sock yarns and for single skeins and leftovers. I also spin, I have a spinning wheel, but I do not count my hand-spun yarn as stash because for me, my hobbies of spinning and knitting and crocheting have not yet converged quite. The yarn I do spin up is not regularly used in knitting and crocheting projects, and I just never started counting my hand-spun yarn as part of my stash, so handspun is not stash. Whips, on the other hand, are stash. I only take off the numbers of my stash number whenever a project is completely finished. So any yarn that's already knitted up, but it's still a work in progress, that is still part of my stash. I think lastly, I do not use the Ravelry stash option. I have a few yarns as entries in my Ravelry stash, just because I wanted to see what it's like to create those entries, to keep track of the yarns I have through Ravelry, because I use Ravelry a lot. It's like my most used website. But the stash option is just not for me. I prefer having an amount of stash that I can keep in my head and keep the numbers physically in this little booklet. I think that's all of the important information. For this video, we are first going through this table, which has the most interesting yarns in it, where I can tell you the most about plans and other fantasies. And then after we're done with this table, we will go to the other spot and I will show you those yarns probably in less detail, because there's not as much to say about those yarns. There are leftovers, there are for socks, it's just less spectacular. And then at the end, we will have a look at all of the whips that are outside of those two spaces. And then at the same time, I will count everything. So we're doing a big recount of my yarn stash. Currently, according to my little booklet, I should have 256 units of yarn in my stash, or actually 254, because I started April 2026 with 256, and so far in April, it is today April 16th, I have only finished one project, which is a pair of stockings. You can see those in my last podcast episode, and those used 2 skeins of yarn, 2 full balls of yarn. So we're at -2, 254 is the number we should have. I suspect there's going to be a little bit more than that. So I'm really curious myself to see what the final number will be. So let's start with this table. Okay, I think the chicken needs to go. I think my tea needs to go. Let me have a sip. I will prepare everything and then we're diving right into this table. I will try to do my best to place the yarn around me in a way that I can still move. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, let's start maybe with the most unusual color for me, which is this Drops Fiesta, a 75/25 DK weight sock yarn. I have 7 of these red balls. They are the color number 12. And along with these actually go these, the same yarn, Drops Fiesta, in a white chalky color. The color is number 2. I also have 7 skeins of these. With these 14 in total skeins, I plan on making 2 pairs of stockings, one for me and one for my partner. I have a pattern That's by Drops Design. I'll put up a picture. I don't think there's a pattern name, just a number as a name. They are traditional motif-esque. It's just an easy structure motif on these stockings, and they're stockings. And I wanted to make them in DK weight because fingering weight stockings take a considerable amount longer, and because I want to make 2 pairs, I went with Drops Fiesta. The pattern itself is, I think, written for Drops Charisma, which is a superwash 100% wool yarn that I don't love. And yeah, these will be more wearable. I want to make 1 red and 1 white stocking each. And those stockings are also meant for a historical costume concept that my partner and I have together. This is something I want to cast on relatively soon. I would like to knit it within the next 3 months. But that's 14 balls of Drops Fiesta for this project. I'll just put the mic aside and then remove the balls. Just having a peek inside here. You can see there's a few brown bags. Let's get these out of the way. This bag right here is Honor og Air Nutiden yarn, unspun Nutiden yarn in this beautiful purple color. I also showed this yarn recently on a podcast because I'm planning on making an Amy slipover with this yarn. Now, when this yarn was delivered, it was all compressed into this one package. So I think I actually counted this as 1 unit of yarn, which maybe was a mistake because when I opened it up, you could actually see that there's many different sized cakes in here. I'll try to crinkle as little as possible, but there's 3 more in here. Wow, we're actually doing a tricky thing right at the beginning. Let me see what I have as an entry in here. So in my not so smart little booklet, I actually can't find what I did when this arrived. I have the suspicion that I may have not added this into stash. So what I will do now is I will just count the units of yarn that I have of this right now. So that out here is 1 and 2. And then in here, just to be safe, I will get this out as well. 4 and 5. So we will count this as 5. Okay, so that is 5 for the Nutiden. I want to hold the Nutiden together with this yarn. I also showed this in the same podcast episode. These are 4 skeins of Lana Grossa Setasuri. It's a fluffy yarn that's made with silk and Suri alpaca. I think they're 25 grams each. That's the color 69. Yeah, 25 grams, 212 meters. I have 4 of those, and they will be held together with the Nutiden to make an Amy slipover. Yeah, some quantities, like smaller quantities in here, I do have in plastic bags for moth protection reasons. And when you handle this table, you can see that anything that's in here is still accessible from the outside, meaning when you touch it or move it around, especially at the bottom, any unprotected yarn in there will get roughed up a little bit. That's also why I put them in the plastic bags. And especially for fluffy yarn, it's nice to have them protected like this. That is 4. These brown bags are both from the same shop. It's a local yarn store. But this, was not necessarily purchased in that store. In these bags, I have more unspun yarn. In this one, we have some Istex Plötulopi that I have no specific plans for. These are more or less leftovers from other projects. This is just a plain black one that's not in its plastic wrapping anymore. This is also a black, but it's the Cosmic colorways, Cosmic something. So it's black with red, blue, and yellow fibers in there. The color is, you just saw the color, 2024. So one of those. And then I have one scrap of the same cosmic color. It's just a little tiny one, so I could count this as one. Do I count it as one? I'll count these together. So this is one, just because the scrap is gonna be used up so quickly when I start working with this. So this is one, and then this is also one. I'll put the bag aside and put the yarns back in there whenever I put everything back together. Now the last brown paper bag has more unspun yarn. This one is Wool Dreamers Mancelopis in this beautiful azul colorway. A really nice blue with some slightly brighter blue flecks in there. And then I have another cake of the same yarn in the pure white color. It's so nice and soft. I used both of these as well as the black Plötulopi in my Tapetum sweater, a sweater that's completely knit in unspun yarn and designed by Teti Lutzak. I also talked about that recently, I believe. So these are 2 more cakes, 2 units of yarn, although they are, I believe, 200 grams. I do have the tags in here, 100 grams. But not quite anymore because I already worked with them. Okay, that bag can also go to the side and wait. This blue thing here is something I knitted up, but I will need to frog it because it turned out way too big. This pattern is called Calliometry, and it's a really smart headband that's knitted in ribbing and therefore is super stretchy. And it looks super cute. I found this pattern through Jen of the Stash Down Diaries. It has holes created here by doing short rows, and then you add a button and you can put it on your head and have a very flexible, well-fitting headband, which I really struggle with. I struggle with headbands that fit because I can't make them so far. The yarn I used for this one is too thick for this project for my particular heads. The yarn is Drops Nepal in, I think this is my favorite colorway that they have. It's this oceany blue and green yarn, color number 8905. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 full skeins and then half a skein. These are leftovers from the zipper sweater I made for my partner. This Christmas just passed, and I have no plans for this yarn at this point in time. I will count them as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units of yarn in stash. Sticking with the Drops yarn, I have this Drops Flora in this beautiful purple colorway, and this has also been sitting in my stash for quite a while. This is the color number 9, and I actually, oh, there's something on there, sorry. I actually do have a plan for this. It's not a pattern, it's something that I will have to come up with by myself or take a pattern and then adapt it to what I have planned. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 skeins, full skeins unused of this beautiful purple yarn. And I want to make, I'm not sure, probably a t-shirt, maybe a long-sleeved fingering weight sweater. But the yoke I want to knit in 1 strand, held single or held double, I'm not quite sure, of a silk mohair yarn. I purchased this skein at a wool festival here in Germany. This is a hand-dyed skein of silk mohair. It's dyed with logwood, so it's a perfect purple. I love it so much. The dyer is called Maybells Pflanzenfarben.de, and this skein was in the bargain basket. I'm not sure how much I paid. Maybe around 10 euros, I'm not sure. I thought it was a really nice price, and the color goes really well with this commercially dyed Drops Flora. I want to use these yarns together, have a lacy yoke, probably do some kind of texture, and then knit the rest in this alpaca wool yarn. So these in total are again 6 units of yarn. I do need to get up in between filming. Sitting on the floor is not ideal for legs, but we have one more thing in here that's in a little bit of a different packaging situation. And that is this bag. I obviously ordered at yarnmania.com. And in here is yarn that is actually part of a WIP. So I currently have 2 WIPs on my needles, one of which is a sweater, for which the yarn is in here. The yarn is Drops Fiesta in this beautiful colorway with the number 36. The base color is white, and then there's blue and brown speckles all over it. I really like this colorway. So yeah, I'm currently knitting it up. We will get back to that project later in the WIP section, but for now we will just count how many I have in this bag here, because they are stored in here. They go into the totals number for this table. Let me just count them. 12 beautiful balls of Drops Fiesta for the sweater number 9 light that is currently still on my needles. The balls will now go back into the bag, and then we will move on. Another really big quantity in here is one of the newest additions to my stash. I was actually so lucky and won this yarn, which is really, really amazing. Let me show you the yarn first. It's this beautiful aqua turquoisey color. It's a yarn by Briggs & Little. It's the yarn Regal, 2-ply, I believe. The colorway is the number 67, and yeah, it's called Meadow Green. This yarn has 248 meters. It is a 2-ply indeed, and one hank weighs 113 grams or 4 ounces. This yarn is not readily available here in Germany. It's produced in Canada, and I think some shops may even sell this, but yeah, as I said, I was lucky enough to win this yarn through an Instagram giveaway hosted by the lovely Yeji, also known as Handmade Co. She sent this yarn over to me, and yeah, I'm so honored and so happy to have this. I have 6 hanks in here, and I am planning to make a sweater for myself out of this. This yarn held on its own, no silk mohair or anything. And when I saw this yarn, I was immediately thinking of a textured sweater. Something that many of you may know and have an instant visual of is the Storm sweater or the Ingrid sweater by Petite Knit, though I am thinking of another pattern I want to knit. It's a pattern that's also a structured knit, and it's from a book that's all about seafaring knits. I think the sweater is actually also called Storm. Yeah, I think that would this yarn would look really great in a textured sweater. So that is my plan for this. Though I have not swatched or anything, this is probably more of an autumn project for me. Now the rest we have here are smaller quantities. In this bag here, I have a variety of Drops Brushed Alpaca Silk leftovers that I want to use together to make a stripy cardigan or kimono style throw-on piece. I think I actually have to open this up to count the individual skeins that are in here, and also to tell you the colorway names. Oh my god, I'm so smart. I attached the microphone to the little table. Okay, we have 2 skeins, one full one and one partially used one in the color 13. We have 3 skeins, 2 whole and 1 partially used of this light gray in the color 2. This is the yarn I made my late nights sweater out of that I wore in a previous podcast episode. And then lastly, we again have 3 skeins of the black colorway, color number 16. This is, I think, also really old stash. I think these 3 colors actually go together quite well. 2 neutrals, and the blue is also not really out there. So yeah, that's 8 into stash. The next yarn we have here is a pack of 2 balls of Drops Alpaca Boucle in the black colorway. This is a yarn I have never worked with, and I initially wanted to make a beanie out of this yarn, but I have so many beanies and I don't think I would enjoy a beanie in this yarn as much as the beanies I already have. So I looked around and there is a pattern by Le Pull. I struggle to find the name, but it is a very simple vest. It's really just no sleeves, no closure even for the front, just a panel for the front left and front right, and then a back panel. There's probably some shaping. I haven't looked into the pattern in greater detail, but I should be able to make a tiny vest garment for myself out of this. And I think that will be nice. I like the boucle texture, the look of it, though I have heard knitting with it is not that pleasurable. But yeah, I'm planning to make this little vest, maybe, probably, in this spring as well. This is also a yarn you may have seen before if you have seen a podcast. This is Austermann Merino Cotton, in this beautiful purple color. The color is the number 21. And I want to make the Barbro blouse out of this one, which is a beautiful all-over lace long sleeve shirt by Knitting for Olive or Pernille Larsen. And I think the mixture of wool and cotton is just nice in general, like year round, but especially for a skin-tight but lacy garment, this would work really well for me. So this also has a plan actually, and I have 5 balls of this yarn in here. This is also maybe familiar. 2 little balls of Drops Baby Merino in this beautiful yellow color. I desperately want to knit with this. I just don't know what. It's the color number 45 and I love it so much. I'm really tempted to make a whole garment out of this for myself, for which I would need to buy more yarn. And as I have so many other project quantities already, this will probably not happen anytime soon. But we will see, But that's just 2 balls of yarn. Another yellow thing in my stash. I have also talked about this Isaya, what's it called? Silk mohair? Yeah. Isaya silk mohair in the color 59, 3 balls of this yarn. Also don't really have a plan for this. Still thinking about making a ranunculus with this one. More Isaya yarn. This is Isaya Alpaca 1, 100% alpaca and 400 whopping meters per 50 grams. It's a beautiful colorway. It's dark blue with purple, and I actually have knitted with a colorway like this in Drops Charisma. It's basically the same colorway, but a very different yarn. I have no plans for this. This will probably also wait until autumn and winter until this becomes something. I would definitely like to make garment, a pullover with this one. But yeah, I've also never worked with this kind of yarn. 100% alpaca with 400 meters per 50 grams. This is so thin. I'm not sure if I want to hold it together with a different yarn or hold it with itself. I just know that I love the color and that I have no plans. But I have 3 of those. Well, hello. The light has changed. The camera position has changed. My phone died. So I was forced to take a little break. I recaffeinated myself. And yeah, we're back with 30% charged, baby. So let's get right into it. Luckily, I didn't lose a lot of footage and the sun is joining us. How beautiful. So I was talking about this pack of yarns when my phone decided to die. And in this bag, we have 3 different skeins of yarn. All of them are by Sandnes Garn. The one on top is Sandnes Garn Duo. It's a single skein, 50 grams. This is also a cotton and merino wool mix. It's a DK weight yarn and it is the color 3871. It's this beautiful, soft cocoa nib, heathered brown color. I got this as well as both of these balls of yarn on sale, all from the same shop. You can see what I paid for them right here. These 2 skeins that are in the bag are both Sandnes Garn Sunday in quite similar but not the same colors. The one on top, as you can see, is from the Petite Knit Shade card. The one on the bottom is a regular colorway. The one on the top has the color 5591 and the one on the bottom has the color number 5882. And they, as this one, were all the last skeins of the dye lot that the shop had in stock, so they were on sale. And I thought that the 2 ball skeins of Sunday were quite close in color, and I could alternate skeins and knit something in stripes and make it look, well, like it's one color or just slightly striped. The Sunday is a fingering weight yarn with 235 meters on each ball, which would mean that I could potentially knit a top with negative ease. I was thinking about the Idun by Tornedals Frun. I have made that top before. It's nice basic. I don't wear it that much though, because I knitted it in Drops Flora, I think, which has alpaca and therefore is really warm. And this being a merino yarn, I'm curious to feel how that would feel. So that's my plan for these. Out of the Sandnes Garn Duo, which has 115 meters, I'm thinking about making a Sophie scarf. I like this color, it's neutral. I think it would feel nice on the neck. And I wanted to purchase these yarns because they are cheaper than the usual price. And it's a nice way to try out the yarn and see if I even like it. And then maybe if in the future I want to make a bigger project, I can test this before and know if I even like the feel of the yarn. Okay, I put that away and spared you of the crinkling. Now we're down to the last few bags in this table. We have this bag, 2 skeins of Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool in a black color and a bright orange color. And I wanted to knit these up into a beanie, but I wasn't sure what beanie for the longest time. They are giving Halloween, which I love, so I was gonna go with stripes and knit a classic ribbed hat, a pattern by Jake Canton for Pearl Soho. And I have made that pattern once before and I think it's my most well-fitting hat. And yeah, I would like another one of those. And I could see doing 2 row stripes with this yarn, But then I got the idea of knitting brioche with this. And Pearl Soho actually also has another free beanie pattern. I think it's called the Basic Brioche Beanie, maybe. I think I could get away with this yarn quantity. You would usually need a little bit more for the adult small size, but if I cropped it a little bit, I think this would work. And cropping the length should work for my taste as well. I actually like those fisherman beanies that have the cuff, not the cuff, what's it called? The brim above the ear. Yeah, I like short beanies, and I think that would work. Sadly, I didn't get to it this past spooky season, but really I would wear this year-round anyway, so this will probably be a more spontaneous cast on when I just need a little palette cleanser or feel like knitting brioche at the moment. I have also never worked with Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool. I paid €3.82 per skein. Those were also dye lot leftovers from the same shop as the Sandnes garn we just looked at. Next up, another bag with 2 skeins. We have, by the way, I use skeins and balls so interchangeably. I try to be consistent, but it's really difficult consuming all of these different people's videos where everyone seems to be a little bit inconsistent with the terminology. So yeah, at this point, just a little note on that. But we have 2 balls of Eastex Lättlopi. It's the worsted weight, I think. It's 100 meters per 50 gram Icelandic wool. In these beautiful colors. The one on this side, your left, is color number 1402, and the other one is 1404. And those are actually 2 yarns I purchased to see if they would look good in a certain color combination. I knitted the Maya cardigan by, I'm not sure of the designer's name, but it was published for, no, I can't remember. It wasn't published for Järbo. I'll have it on the screen, the Maya cardigan. I knitted that in this yarn, and I was unsure, looking at the colors online, which colors would look best together. So I ordered a few spare ones, and with these, I could combine them with any of these. This is another bag full of Lättlopi. These 2 colors, the dark gray and this Milky Way color in the middle, are 2 full skeins. And then this one on the right, this bottle green, is, as you can see, a scrap. These are all colors I used in said Maya cardigan. The dark gray one is the color number 5, the Milky Way is the color number 1702, and the bottle green, I can't tell you right now, but it's called bottle green, I'm quite sure about that. So Lättlopi goes together with Lättlopi really well. I don't have any specific plans for this Lättlopi I have here, so we'll just count them as 5 skeins in stash. Then another colorworky kind of yarn is this Rauma Finul. These are 2 half skeins, one in blue in the color 0437, and the white is the natural white. I can't see the color right now. I had 1 skein of each color, and then I made a pair of fingerless mittens not too long ago, but the name has left my brain already. Again, I will have to put the information on the screen. I'm really sorry. But it is what it is. So I have these 2 half balls left over, and I do count this as 2 in stash. I may just make another pair of the same fingerless mittens. I enjoyed making them. They look really good in this color combination, And the yarn here is probably not enough for a pair of mittens. So fingerless mittens or wrist warmers would probably be doable from this amount of yarn. More colorworky yarn. We have 3 25 grams balls of Jameson's Shetland Spindrift in beautiful colors. I love bright green, I love purple, and I love gray and black. Exciting. These 3 tiny balls I purchased in Amsterdam. The shop is called Hooks and Yarn. And I have not used them, as you can see. These are brand new skeins. I planned on making fingerless mittens with these as well. There was a pattern in the shop that inspired me at the moment I was there, but right now I don't have any specific plans for these. For a really long time, I was sketching out a lavender motif so that I could come up with a pattern myself, but that, hasn't happened yet. The purple is the color number 1300 or Aubricia. The dark brown gray is the color 101, Shetland Black. And the green is the color number 780, Lime. I still love these colors. These are so up my alley. Maybe I will just have to purchase more of them and add more shades of green and purple and then just go full on colorwork vest or something. Then another bag with 2 half skeins of Drops Daisy. These are leftovers from a very recent project, namely the Day and Night and Day. I'm not sure which way around it is. I just know that I said it wrong the entirety of the second podcast episode. A cowl pattern by Andrea Mowry. As I said, knit this recently, and this is the leftovers. Drops Daisy is a 100% merino yarn that's very, very soft and also very, very pilly. It's non-superwash, and don't have any plans for these, but I have more Drops Daisy leftovers. And this brings us to the last bag in this desk, a bag with 3 full and 1 half-ish skein of Drops Daisy in the color 19. Also fairly recently, I used this yarn to knit up the Anne's Puffed Sleeves by Amy Scher. I am really happy with the outcome. The pattern looks so nice. I love Anne of Green Gables, especially the TV show Anne with an E. The books I have also read, and they're great. But that has nothing to do with my yarn stash. So also a fairly recent make. I really enjoy this color. And again, similar to the color combination of the Drops Brushed Alpaca Silk, we have 2 neutrals and then a blue, which is also quite neutral. I could combine these, maybe. I would probably have enough yarn for a vest or a short-sleeved cropped cardigan, maybe. I would like to put these yarns together, actually, because I wouldn't know what to do with the black and white daisy otherwise. But that brings us to 2 Drops Daisy, and then in this bag there are 4 of the blue Drops Daisy. And with that, we're at the end of this table. As you can see, I have some paper at the bottom just to protect the yarn from me moving this around. I will count all of the yarn that was in here and put it back, and then we will go on to the next location. Okie dokie, welcome to the second spot in my apartment where I keep my yarn stash. I would say about a third, but we'll see if that's actually true when we count everything. This is a bag that's meant to be put under a bed most of the time. Of course, you can put it wherever you want. This is an IKEA product and it's quite simple. It's, I would say, about maybe 18 centimeters in height, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. And it has this flap up here that you can zip closed, so it's quite moth and insect proof. I luckily don't have any moth problems here in this apartment. I also take precautions to not ever have any moths in my yarns. The organization of this bag is quite straightforward for me. Of course, I applied my own sense, my own organizational preferences to this. Maybe my way of organizing things will also make sense to you. So for an overview of what's in here, this is the top left corner. So this is the first skein in here, and everything up to this yellow and blue one, down this side, and then along these organizers here. Everything on this left hand side is sock yarn. So it's fingering weight sock yarn of different brands. I will not show you every single skein that's in here. For an overview, it's a lot of Drops Fable. It's a lot of Opal. That's kind of a recent addition because there is a thing in Germany. I'm not sure if they ship into other countries as well. Opal, the yarn producer, has a subscription box that they send out 4 times a year that includes 6 100-gram skeins of sock yarn of mystery colors. And I received that box twice. So yeah, there's kind of a lot of Opal yarn in here at the moment. We also have my first ever Schoppel Zauberball in here in this gorgeous color that's just absolutely amazing. I'm so looking forward to knit with this. I have 2 of those. I don't think I will make socks out of these, but because they are sock yarn, they're still in here. So 75% wool, 25% nylon, polyester, polyamide, that kind of thing. But we also have, for example, this one. This is a sock yarn by Onion that's made with nettle instead of any plastics. Purchased this a while ago. I really want to work with it, but yeah, that's an exception. Everything else is pretty much your standard sock yarn. As I said, mostly Drops and then Opal. We also have some Schachenmeier Regia or Regia. Some gifted kind of vintage sock yarn. And yeah, this is also something else. This is Gründel, another, I think, southern German yarn producer. And yeah, so this entire left-hand side is sock yarn, and then the rest of the bag is scraps, single skeins, and leftovers, and then some other things. But we have this container here at the bottom. These are 2 skeins of Drops white cotton, another ball of cotton, single skein, and then some scraps of a variety of projects that just sits here. There's no real sense why these skeins in particular are in this container. It just is for organizational purposes, so that not everything is tumbling over each other. Then we have this crocheted bag here. This is really scraps. So anything, I would say, under 5 grams, maybe. Oh, maybe a bit more. This is the leftover from the first ever skein of hand-dyed yarn I purchased that I made into a muscle burrow, and this is the leftover. This is by the dyer Undercover Otter. I purchased that in Amsterdam as well. In this container here we have, first of all, a bag of lavender, and then my mohair scraps. So half a skein, another half a skein. Ooh, knitting for Olive. That's a rarity in my stash, actually. And then this is all mohair, silk mohair scraps. This is a cobweb weights. I'm not sure, actually. It's really, really thin. A yarn that I was gifted that I want to work up by holding multiple strands together. And then, yeah, up to here, everything is silk mohair scraps. And then this entire bag here, can I even grab that? These are all my swatches. Of course, they are not sorted in chronological order, but you can see these are all of the swatches that I have. Not all of the swatches I have ever knit up still exist. Some of them I forgot to use in the projects, but oh, there's also the swatch of the cardigan I'm wearing. I'm keeping these swatches to make a project bag out of them. I think there's a pattern called the swatch bag, maybe. But I'm just planning to put these together, sew them together, and then have a little really simple bag. And I think I may actually have enough gauge swatches already to do that. Can I manage to fit them back here? Yeah, I can. There is this pack of embroidery threads I don't embroider, but I'm kind of tempted to keep this. I really enjoy the colors. It's just, ooh, it's 100% polyester. I think I can make something with these. I'll keep them. So now we're on the right-hand side of this bag. Everything up here is also leftovers. And again, I don't think I will show you everything. This is also opal yarn. It's a Christmas gift that was part of the subscription box. It's a hand-dyed 3-ply sock yarn, 100 grams with 560 meters, 75-25. That's, yeah, I think it's hand-dyed and it's in rainbow colors. I plan to use this actually for a colorwork yoke sweater. I'm looking at a pattern by Jennifer Steingass. I think the name is something with gate. I will put up a picture of the pattern. I'm not sure if this will work with it. I have yet to gauge swatch for that. So if I were to show you every single skein on this side, I think it would be quite tedious. These two are acrylic cakes that I'm planning to put into my scrappy blanket, and I find it handy to have some acrylic yarn in stash for emergencies, for provisional cast-ons, stuff like that. And then here we have a t-shirt that I knitted years ago and then never wore. It's made out of 100% cotton. I had 4 different skeins that kind of went together, so I didn't use a pattern, and you can see I ran out of yarn, which is why I came up with this weird closure at the front, and I just don't enjoy this. So I want to frog this and use the yarn for something else. Actually, I need 2 crochet baskets for my home. We're really lacking containers, so I could use this cotton for it. Cotton is really good for that. We have 2 cones of Ito Kinu silk that I used for Sophie scarves, and a tag. We have some Drops Puna, which is a 100% alpaca yarn that I used for my peacock cardigan. We have a skein of Austermann merino cotton, which I just used for my waffle tea test knit by the Knit Pearl Girl. This is also a leftover of a sabai top I knitted. And then here I have some Drops Bell and some Sandnesgarn Line in this blue color. And then I purchased quite recently these 2 skeins of Sandnesgarn Line. Sadly, they are 2 different dye lots, and the shop didn't want to take them back or refund me or anything. So I have 2 different dye lots, which is a little bit sad, but it's fine because I'm planning on striping these with the other Line and the drop spell and make a stripy summer top. I have a pattern in mind. It's by Kutowa Kika. I'm not sure about the name of the pattern. Maybe it sent me a postcard. Again, I'll have it on the screen. This is a single skein of Holzgarn Coast. This is falling over. This is Drops Flora. This is Drops Lima. This is Schachenmeier Boston. That's losing its tag. I really don't know what to make with a single skein of 5-weight yarn, so I'm not sure. Is that Aran? Is that chunky? No, it's 55 meters. So I have one skein and a little bit here. I brought you a little bit closer because then you can see better what I'm actually talking about. So we covered all of this side. Yeah, this fleshy colored yarn is actually 2 strands held together. This used to be a project and then I didn't enjoy the finished product, so I frogged it. The fluffy strand is Drops Brushed Alpaca Silk, and the non-fluffy strand is GGH something. I think I had a leftover of it here. Yeah, it's GGH Cashmere. It's cashmere and merino. So quite a nice yarn, so it was a shame that I made it into something that I didn't enjoy, which is why I frogged it. I'm not sure if I want to use those 2 strands held together again or separate them. Yeah, so that is that, and that's why it's caked up like this. This is a standard crochet cotton in a bright orange that I used to make a doily. That was very fun, actually. These 2 skeins are Woolly Knit Worthmill DK. Out of this one, I made my Freya sweater, and out of the brown one, I made my Ariandel sweater. Both of those were also test knits, and I think I've mentioned them before. This blue yarn is, I think, the oldest yarn I have in stash. This is a 70/30 acrylic wool mix that I purchased. I purchased this before I could even knit because I crocheted with it. And it was like a huge ball of yarn, maybe like 300 grams. And this is all I have left over after using it for so many different things. This orange skein here was a gift. It's a single skein of a chunky, fluffy yarn. I am not sure what I want to make with this, though the composition of the yarn is really nice. This is a single cake of yarn, 100% non-superwash wool that was hand dyed with natural materials. I purchased this at a medieval market and I really enjoy the color, though I'm also not sure what I want to make with this. It's quite rustic, and I would say this is an Aran weight yarn, probably. Then, as we have established, handspun is not part of stash, so these are handspun. Therefore, they don't exist in here. Here I have all of my hanks. These are 2 hanks of Nordic Sky. This is like commercially hand-dyed yarn. I really like this one. And these are so soft. I've never had yarn that's a sock yarn that is this soft. This is also 75/25. This is another hank of hand-dyed yarn from a German dyer called Zaubermausis Wollstübchen. It's really difficult to translate, and yeah, the tag is just regular paper, so it's quite unstable, but there's the name, Zaubermausis Wollstübchen. Also a sock yarn, and I really like the colors. Oh, another tiny handspun. This is also a hand-dyed with natural colors. This was made with Blauholz in German. Is it logwood in English? It's alpaca and wool. And it's this beautiful, deep, variegated purple color. Oh, I think I'll make a Sophie scarf out of this one. This is so basic, but this would be really nice as a Sophie scarf, actually. And another bit of handspun. Then in this corner down here, I have all of my project bags. They are just a handful. Some of them I've sewn myself. Some of them I've knitted. And some of them are random bags that were gifted or part of another product. And then one last thing in here, you can barely see it. It's in this cardboard box because it was shipped to me. Let me open this off camera so you don't see my address. This is a treasure of mine. These are 3 mini skeins that I got because I was for 1 month only a member of the Chai Latte tier on the Patreon of Hannah of Chromatic Yarns or the Corner of Craft. When you are a member on her highest tier, you get a little package of hand-dyed yarn every month. And for me, I sadly had to pay a little bit too much tax when it arrived here, so it's financially not feasible for me to be a subscriber of that tier anymore. But I love these yarns. They are so nice. And because they are so special, I have not yet used them. And they're sitting there, and I'm hoarding them like a treasure. So yeah, overall for this bag, I sadly cannot give you many concrete plans except for the striped summer top that's going to be made out of these yarns here. And then, of course, most of the sock yarn will turn into socks. Other than that, these are my scraps and leftovers. Okay, so I will now get to count the yarn. I will not include this t-shirt, so that will join the handspun. But other than that, I should count everything. If any scraps, especially in here or there, are so tiny that I have already considered them as destashed, I will have written so on their tags, and then I will not count them into the total. Other than that, let me get to count. All of these top-down angles, they're really not great for having me in frame. So yeah, we're at my desk. And I have some drawers at my desk where I use one drawer to keep my whips. As you may know, or if you've seen my recent podcast episodes, I don't have a lot of whips going at the same time. Right now I have 2 whips on my needles and 1 scrappy blanket, which we will get to in a second. This brings us to the one exception I have to the entire storage situation, which is whips. As I said in the intro, whips are not part of my stash. No, whips are part of my stash. The yarn I use for a project only leaves the total count after the project is finished. So let me open this drawer. And the way I keep track of that is by having this drawer at my desk and just keeping all of the tags of the yarns I have already knitted up into this project. So you can see these are 2 balls of the yarn that I'm using for this project that I will probably not even crack into. And then there's 4 full skeins of the silk mohair. I think I will need 1 more of these. And all of these tags here are the balls I have already used up. So for this stash count, I will count, of course, the full units of yarn I have here, but also every single tag counts as 1. They are still part of my stash until this project is completely finished. When I finish this project, have it all knitted up, I will be able to take off maybe like 10 of the total amount of yarn that I have, the number that we will get to at the end of this video. We see there's one brown tag. This is a different yarn. This is Drops Fiesta. This is the one skein I already knitted up into my second whip, of which you will have seen the yarn at the beginning of this video, because the yarn for this project I am storing in the desk. It was this yarn here. This over here in the corner is more hand-spun, hand-dyed. We will not count this into the stash, but for the total amount, I am now going to count every tag that is in here, every full skein that's over here, with the single exception of this one. This was an already destashed yarn. So this will not be counted. Everything else will be counted. So there's 10 tags already here, but I need to look at my whip basket, because I think one of those, yeah, both of those tags belong to the skeins that are already attached here. So I do not need to count these because their tags are in here. So that is 10, and then 12, 14, 16. 16 skeins of these black yarns for the cardigan. And then we have one of these in here. So that's 17 in the whip drawer. Actually, we're making it 18 for the whip drawer because I forgot the actual whip where one ball is currently attached to. So 18 for the whip drawer. Last but not least, we will have a look at everything that's outside of the desk and the bag under the bed, namely my whips. Let's start with this shoe box that I almost forgot about. It just barely made it into this video. In here, I have solid granny squares in brown, made out of Schachenmeier Bravo Originals, which is a 100% acrylic yarn in the DK weight. How many meters do we have here? 133 meters per 50 grams. This yarn has been in my stash for so long, and I never knew what to make with it. So one day I just started making brown solid granny squares. And I had maybe like 80 granny squares. And I intended to make a checkered bed throw blanket type thing, for which I would have needed to get a cream color and make just as many granny squares. And thinking about that, I was like, nope, I don't want to do that. I don't enjoy joining granny squares, so they just sat like this for the longest time. Recently, I used up a good chunk of the granny squares I had to make a lining for a big basket where we collect our wool laundry. And because it is a basket, sometimes there would be fabrics that kind of are stuck to the basket itself when you want to grab them, leaving holes in a few things. That happened once or twice, and that was enough. So I made a lining out of these granny squares. But as you can see, there are still 3 full balls of this acrylic yarn in here that I don't have any plans for. Maybe I will use them to join the rest of them and just make a cushion cover or something. But here we have 3 skeins of yarn, balls of yarn. Then next to me we have this basket that I crocheted, in which you can see there is a scrappy project. In a few of my episodes I have mentioned that I have a scrappy blanket going on that I don't count as a whip because I only work on it when I have scraps that fit into this project. This blanket is sorted by color. And the way I do it is I just make, I made kind of big, I think these are 19 rounds of granny stitch. It's just a granny square. And in this one I have all of the blue, green colors. I have a green one that's also finished. I have a white one that is close to being finished. And then I have other colors. You can see my pink and purple one is still very tiny. For this, I have a few yarns picked out from my stash, from the bag, that I want to crochet up into here and then have them out of my stash. I have, for example, this. This used to be a lily top, a pattern by Passionate Kelsey, that turned out too big and I didn't wear it. It's a cotton yarn and now I'm just, I used it for something else and the rest I want to work into this granny square. This does not count as a unit of yarn. As we have seen before, if I have something that's already knitted or crocheted up into something and then I decide to reuse the yarn, that is not part of a stash. I also have this tiny ball of sock yarn scrap. This is a yarn that I used to make a muscle burrow. This was also already destashed. But then this little donut is actually 1 unit of yarn. I very recently used this to make my pressed flowers kerchief. And when I use this up and have crocheted it into this square, I will be able to take 1 of the total count. But for now, we have 1 as part of this whip. Does this make sense? I hope it does. I feel like to me it does. I also have a few tiny scraps of blue. These are all not part of stash, but what is in stash is this almost full skein of Hobbii Sport Weight Superwash Merino yarn. I want to crochet this up into this square as well, but for now that's another one. This one is from the same pressed flowers kerchief for the brown square. So another one. And then for the last square, which is yellow and orange, I have picked out these 2 scraps from stash that when I use these up, I will be able to take 2 off of the stash count. But that means these yarn that I have in this basket put aside to crochet up into the squares, I missed a piece of yarn, is 5. So the scrappy blanket has a stash value of 5. We have this bag that I sewed myself out of a fabric that a friend gifted to me. It's just a very simple drawstring bag, and you may recognize this brown color from the acrylic that I used wherever I could. I really like this fabric. I don't know, I like the colors and I like cookies. In here we have no ongoing whip, but a few skeins of yarn put aside for a specific purpose. It is 1 skein of Shapier Soft Fun, a cotton acrylic mix DK weight in the soft pink, and then we have Drop Saffron in the color 18, this white, in the color 31, this green. There's another one in this beautiful purple color number 5. And another Shapier's yarn, Maxi Sweet Treat. It's 100% mercerized cotton, color number 519. So this is a standard crochet cotton. And I have used these yarn to make a little amigurumi pig in a blanket. I'll put a picture here. Remember, and maybe one day I will make him a sibling, a partner, I'm not sure. I kind of love this one piggy so much that I want him to be the only one I have, but at the same time I love him so much that I maybe want to make another one. I'm very confused about my own feelings. But yeah, I have these in this bag. I think I will actually get them out of here and put them in the bed bag, the bed storage situation, because they've been sitting here for a while, and yeah, I'm not sure if I want to make another one. So for now, they are in this whip section of the video, another 5. I have 1 cone of yarn. I purchased this at another yarn festival here in Germany, and this is a mystery yarn. The seller actually specialized in alpaca yarn, and her supplier also sold miscellaneous other yarns, and she had this cone of black fluff. I'm pretty sure it's only plastic. Sadly, she wasn't able to tell me, and yeah, it doesn't say anything about the contents. This used to be bigger when I bought it, and I paid 29 euros, which, looking back, I overpaid. I don't want to say I regret that I bought this, because I have used it quite a lot. For example, in all of the granny squares that I just showed you for the blankets, I held every scrap with 1 strand of this cone. But yeah, that's the only cone I have other than those tiny silk cones that you've already seen. Last but not least, I have some yarn put aside for a planned project. This has not yet been cast on because I realize I'm a little bit intimidated by it, or I'm not sure if it's intimidation or insecurity about whether I should really do it. This is the yarn I have picked out. This is a variety of sock yarns. Lots of Drops Fable, some Retrosaria Rosa Pomar Mondim, so Portuguese 100% wool sock yarn. I think I have 3 colors of Mondim, and then the rest is Drops Fable, with the exception of this Fulculana Avetta, also a sock yarn in this hazelnut color. And this palette is put aside and planned to be made up into the Mosaic Sweater Lights, which is a crochet sweater pattern by Nomad Stitches. The reason I am unsure if I want to make this is I'm not sure about the fit of the garment. The yoke seems to be quite deep. There's not many projects on Ravelry. There is a sport weight version of the same sweater, which seems to be the first one, the default one. And then after that, the designer released a version for fingering weight yarn. I absolutely love how the sweater looks, though every time I try to crochet something wearable, something about it bugs me. Something about it is not as nice as knitting. It's not as drapey. So yeah, I think that's holding me back, but I really want to get more into crochet garments. I think there is so much potential that I have not yet seen, tried, tested. So I don't know when this will happen, but I absolutely love all of these colors together. It's not very me at all, but somehow I think this looks so nice. We will see when this will happen. But for now, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 yarns for this kind of whip. We're here for the grand finale. This whole video took much longer to film than I anticipated, but it was also very fun. I honestly do love spending time with my yarn, just looking at it, thinking about it, making plans, and then discarding plans. I don't know, I had a good time. But yeah, we're here for the numbers. I counted everything. For the table, inside the table, we have a whopping even 100 units of yarn. How can this be? It's just 100. I counted twice, so yeah, that seems to be correct. 100 in the table. In the bad bag, we have 48 sock skeins, 12 mohair skeins, which is more than I would have thought. Mohair does not take up a lot of space. We have 39 units of yarn for scraps and singles. We have 5 hangs and 3 minis, which brings us to a total of 107 for the bag. So there's actually more in the bag than in the table, which I wouldn't have thought. If you remember at the beginning of the video, I estimated that there's 2/3 of my stash in the table and 1/3 in the bag. I was very incorrect. Then for the last category, the whips. In my whip drawer, which includes my current works in progress that are actually on my needles, I have 18 balls of yarn. We have 1 cone that is included in this category. We have 5 for the scrappy blanket. We have another 5 for the amigurumi pig bag, which will later be merged into the other stash. And then finally, we have 11 balls of yarn for the mosaic sweater light. Oh, and then really last but not least, we have the 3 balls of acrylic yarn for the solid granny squares or whatever I will make out of that yarn, which brings us to a total of 43 for the whip category. Now the grand reveal, the total number of units of yarn I have in stash is 250. It's an even number. It's a quarter of 1,000. It's 250 units of yarn. Now, coming back to what I said at the beginning of the video in my little booklet where I have been keeping track of my yarn stash for 2 years, coming from that same number I counted when I first started tracking 2 years ago. For this point in time, for mid-April 2026, I had 254 units of yarn noted down in my book, and we're only off by 4, which is actually incredible. And it's 4 less than I thought, so I didn't see this coming at all. I thought we would be at a higher number at the end of the video than at the beginning, but no, we're at 250. I'm really happy with that number. I can really work with that. I'm comfortable at this number, but of course I will keep tracking my stash because I think it's fun. I really had a lot of fun doing this video. I am so happy with the results, and I'm really glad that I have this new, refreshed, confirmed number of my stash. I don't know. I think that's really nice. I am looking forward to crocheting up those 5 scraps into the scrappy blanket. That will really be a stash buster. And yeah, my moon dance cardigan, the black whip, should be done soon as well. So it's looking good for my stash. I have not purchased I have not purchased yarn in a little while. If you're interested to see what I am making, I quite recently actually started my knitting and making podcast here on YouTube. At this point in time, there's 3 episodes out. The next episode will be online next week. So yeah, if you're interested, subscribe so you will be notified when the next podcast episode goes online. If you enjoyed this, of course, hit the like, leave a comment, let me know what you thought of this. Do you enjoy stash videos as much as I do? And yeah, you can find me on Ravelry, of course, my favorite website, and on Instagram if you're interested in more not quite daily updates, but you know, I post here and there in my story. So yeah, I hope to see you again, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I will see you next time. Bye!